Week 2 in the NFL, and you're watching Picks with David. Thanks for joining me for another edition right here on YouTube and Facebook. We've got 5 matchups to discuss, but before we do, let's review our results from last week. 5-2 in week number 1. Let's see if we can keep the good times rolling, and we'll start with noon Central Time games. A pair of teams that dominated their first week opponents. It's the 1-0 New Orleans Saints at the 1-0 Dallas Cowboys. New Orleans, of course, played against what is everybody's consensus worst team in the league, the Carolina Panthers. They dominated them in New Orleans. Derek Carr played great with the new offense, 200 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. The defense was dominant. For Dallas, they got their contracts signed. Everybody was, up to speed as far as the offense was concerned. And even though they were under new defensive coordinator Mike Zimmer in Dallas, the defense was just as good when it come to getting the pass rush going and knocking down and intercepting passes. And so, good matchup here in week number 2. Obviously, the Cowboys are not the Carolina Panthers. Dallas playing at home here. I like the Dallas Cowboys to beat the New Orleans Saints. 2 more winning teams from week number 1, the San Francisco 49ers and the Minnesota Vikings. And this is a rematch that could be bitter from last year, as the Vikings beat the 49ers in Minnesota last year on Monday Night Football by the score of 22-17. Much like last year, there's a chance Christian McCaffrey will not play in the game. He did not play against the New York Jets in week 1, and San Francisco rolled anyway with Jordan Mason at running back. Brandon Ayuk, of course, signed his contract, but dropped a big pass in that Monday night game. Hopefully getting back on the practice field and getting together with his team will give him, the hands that he is accustomed to having. When it comes to the Vikings, they played the lowly Giants in New Jersey. And, Sam Darnold played probably one of the best games he's ever played. But it was against a team that I think lacked confidence, didn't look prepared for week 1. Daniel Jones turned the ball over too much. This Brian Flores defense has a lot of young, speedy players on it this year compared to last year. I think the youth movement that they have brought in is going to make this defense a viable one throughout the season. They ran the ball well and effectively with Ty Chandler and Aaron Jones, and I think this could be a really fun game, but I'm going to take the San Francisco 49ers, whether they've got Christian McCaffrey or not, to win the game in Minnesota. The Cincinnati Bengals versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Cincinnati has had a poor record the last couple of years in September, and they were stunned in week 1 by a team a lot of people didn't have a lot of faith in, the New England Patriots. Now, they've had issues with their wide receivers. T. Higgins didn't play last week, could still be questionable, may not play in this game. Jamar Chase's contract is up in the air. He's disgruntled. Kind of what happened to Cincinnati is what I thought was what was going to happen to Dallas in week one, but that did not come to fruition. In this particular game, you've got Cincinnati facing a bitter rival in the Kansas City Chiefs. These two teams have kind of gone at it in the playoffs in the regular season the last several years, and it has bode well most of the time for Cincinnati. But last year and the previous in the AFC Championship game, Kansas City has started to have Cincinnati's number again. And as we come into this game, there's still questions about Joe Burrow's throwing wrist. Is he injured? Is he, has he come back too soon? Did it not heal right? We'll have to find out, as the season progresses here. But as for Kansas City, they looked like the two-time defending Super Bowl champions in a week one game against Baltimore last week. They added Xavier Worthy's speed, and they showed it off. The defense played just as well as it did last year, despite the losses of Willie Gay and L'Jarius Sneed. And so for that reason, they're playing at Arrowhead. I've got to take the Kansas City Chiefs to win the game. Sunday Night Football has the up-and-coming Chicago Bears playing against a Super Bowl favorite this year in the Houston Texans. Chicago won at home on the strength of their defense this last week against the Tennessee Titans. Caleb Williams was not spectacular. He looked a little nervous and jittery back there. The running game was not very good for Chicago. And so I expect them to be much better in this game now that they've kind of worked out perhaps the nerves of the early game this season. Houston put up had a pretty good fight put up against them when it came to the Indianapolis Colts, but they managed to come away with the victory in Indianapolis. They showed off Stephon Diggs, who caught a couple of touchdowns. Joe Mixon ran wild for the Houston Texans. As far as the better overall team right now, I think you have to go with the Houston Texans. And for that reason, even though I think this could be a tighter game than some people think, on the strength of Chicago's defense, I'll take the Houston Texans to win on Sunday Night Football. Monday Night Football has the Atlanta Falcons at the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia's offense was under siege, the Atlanta Falcons offense was under siege by the Pittsburgh Steelers in Atlanta in week number one. And Kirk Cousins did not look like himself. Bijan Robinson ran the ball okay from time to time, but Pittsburgh's swarming defense held them to only 10 points in the game. TJ Watt was a one-man wrecking crew. The defense for Pittsburgh really, in that game, I think showed some of the weaknesses of a team that is brand new being put together. Kirk Cousins at quarterback, Darnell Mooney at wide receiver, still learning a new offense in Atlanta. The defense played okay and didn't allow any touchdowns. And luckily for Pittsburgh, they had Chris Boswell, who kicked 6 field goals. But it'll be a different story against this Philadelphia Eagles team. While I still think they're the better team of the two, I don't expect the defense to swarm and get to Kirk Cousins as easily from the Philadelphia side of the ball. But we saw what the Eagles could do in Brazil against the Green Bay Packers. Saquon Barkley was as spectacular as expected. 3 touchdowns, 2 on the ground and 1 through the air. Jalen Hurts did throw an interception, and there was an issue with the snap and losing a fumble. But, I think if they worked out the bugs here, the Philadelphia Eagles playing at home on Monday night, I think they're the superior team, and I'm going to take the Eagles to win on Monday Night Football. So there you have it, Week 2 Picks with Dave. I want to thank you guys for joining me for another edition right here on Facebook and YouTube. Please like and subscribe to the video so that you can always catch my picks throughout the NFL season. We'll see you Thursday night for the next Thursday night matchup.